Awesome. So thanks, Eric, for joining this call. I think this is something that I think we should have had earlier, but I think it's just I tried to do it on my own, but I think I'm getting into like the deep end here because like I think the scope of this solution validation is just increasing, and I need your help in kind of reining it in and kind of holding it back. So I'm just going to share my screen because that's probably where most of this conversation is going to go. Cool. All right. So what we're talking about is doing like some solution validation regarding to this issue 920. So 920 is talking about the publishing flow. So the journey from the handbook pages to the editing, static site editor, and then from there, how do we take that to merge requests? And potential. This is where it like balloons and goes a little bit wild. Where then do we tackle like multiple pages and multiple edits as well as part of this solution validation, so that we kind of have a good direction for the upcoming milestones. Because I think there's the area right now where we're kind of lacking in a good sense of direction. I think you and I probably could like decide one or two things, but it'd be good to get some user validation that we're on the right path and we're not doing something too far out of there. So let me zoom in on this file a little bit more. The questions I'm trying to answer is like, what challenges do they currently have editing the static pages? I think this is going to be like an ongoing questions for most of our stuff, so that the more people we speak to, the more angles we have on this. How would users prefer to edit static content? This is leaning more towards whether we're going down the live page editing or like just a easier single page editor kind of view. This one, the traditional CMS workflow or directly editing from the site. What this is talking about is, do we need to have like a separate starting spot for creating and managing pages, or should we just manage it directly from the site? Merge request flow. Are we abstracting the right level of stuff away from, are we abstracting enough from the current merge request pages onto the static site editor? Like, are we like taking on the right fields over and handling multiple page edits? And this question here is probably more ongoing behavior stuff. And then in the kind of flow, like, do we want to tackle how do you create a new page? There's this idea that I introduced like just internally around like the difference between save and publish. Do we really need that now, or do we just go with publish for now? But we might need something for drafts. Multiple edits on one MR, editing front matter. This is something that we've always talked about, having a UI for it, but we haven't really done much solution validation for it. I guess there's multiple ways to do that. And then creating the merge request or managing our merge request directly from the static site editor. Those are like the high level questions I'm trying to answer. One thing that I think is like there might be too much in here, and maybe there's some stuff that we cut out so that the sessions for research becomes more focused and can take some stuff out of it that's immediately useful. And what I did to cover some of this stuff was to take a look at, I'm just going to maximize make my screen bigger here. So you took a look at this this already, but oh,
Hey,
hey,
sorry, dropped out.
yeah.
I was just saying if we focus on just the workflow for you're in the editor, you're making changes and you want to save a draft, which I do think is important to validate whether or not that's important, and to what extent we need to work.
You're not allowed to use my phone. You can watch TV. Okay? You can watch TV.
But I want to say one.
Hmm?
I want to say one on the TV.
Where's this? Oh.
I don't know if you're still there or if the
Yeah,
recording's going. There you go.
I'm back.
All right.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yep.
Did you catch all that, or did I freeze up on your side?
I froze up on you. That was my fault.
No problem. Did you hear what I was saying while you were frozen?
No.
Okay,
I got
no
stuck
problem.
at we should save drafts.
Got it. No, that'll give me a chance to be more concise. I think we should focus on the making an edit to one page, saving a draft and returning to that, and making an edit to multiple pages in one MR. I think those two workflows are complementary and very important, and can probably be researched and executed separately from the creation of new pages and editing of front matter.
Okay, cool. Okay, so focus on drafts and multiple page edits, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Cool.
And I think the other piece of feedback was just where you had the list of questions. I think as you were reading it, and I know we've gone over these questions before, but as you were reading it, I think maybe tweaking a word. It's not how we want, or maybe it's not how we want to edit, or how users want to edit sites using a static site editor. It's where. So like the decision we're trying to drive towards is whether the live production page needs to be running like a hot swappable dev environment in some kind of JavaScript application that's running, or whether they're comfortable being in the GitLab environment and managing pages in a more CMS-like environment. So, and I think that's also just a separate research. We can start getting that information, and those are questions we should be asking, but like, as far as visualizing it and driving towards an answer, that's probably going to take multiple iterations, multiple research sessions. But I think it's not so much how, because we know they want, we're fairly certain they want to use a visual editor, rich text editor. We're fairly certain they want to abstract a lot of the markdown syntax away. But what we're less certain of is where they would go to do that.
Okay, so with respect to like trying to tease that out, like where users want to edit, do you have any idea of how we might be able to like answer that question through this solution validation?
Through this one, we could choose one approach and probe for feedback on it. I think if I was gonna do this with like infinite time, I would probably just build out prototypes for both and do parallel tests, or maybe some tests where we A/B test with people and alternate which one we show first and get feedback like that, which we could still do. I think it might be too much to combine those with the publishing flow. But if I think it's maybe possible that in the prototype we imply one or the other. Like we imply that there's a place in the GitLab interface that you can get to a list of all your pages and static assets and things like that, then probe, like, is this where you feel comfortable going? Or, you know, see if they say like, oh, like I'm overwhelmed by the options here. I'd rather just stay on the site.
Gotcha.
It'd be totally valid to choose the other direction as well. I was just for the sake of argument. We could also imply that it's all on the live page and see how they react to it.
Yeah, I guess asset management is something we haven't really looked at. Like we're looking at uploading images and things like that, and we're talking about putting images directly to online storage somewhere, you know, CDN or whatnot, or directly in the repo. But we haven't looked at photo management, and I know that in itself is a whole beast. There's dedicated tools on just asset management, so we don't want to jump into that.
I've gone down the path in my agency days of trying to define specs for digital asset management, and it gets complicated. It is, but you know, we'll get there if necessary.
Yeah, sounds good. Cool. I think I'm just going to share my screen again and see. Okay. So if we want to handle drafts, then I think we can skip this section here around edit front matter, like this this part here. Then unsaved changes is like kind of entering the draft world. So we'll probably explore a bit of that. So I'll just jump into this part here. So save and publish changes. Save was my kind of gateway into saving drafts. So like if you save this, then it'll be like a draft change. At this moment, you don't have any branches or merge request things set up yet. But the idea would be, is the first time you press it, here. Yeah, I guess this is the question, actually, more than a statement. What should save do? Should that trigger off creating a branch and merge request so that we can start saving it as kind of save auto commits, or do we kind of save it locally in like local storage until you like hit publish changes, and that's when we create an MR and a branch and all that? Well, in the scenario when you have like the branch and MR set up completely, the difference between save and publish is that save is just a commit, and then without like triggering like the pipeline so that there's a whole build thing, it's just like temporarily saving it and you haven't run the pipeline yet, but publish changes with like commit, but also run the pipelines and checks and all that stuff as well. Because I think running pipelines costs money to run, so that was the thinking behind that.
Yeah, especially important now. Well, especially important if you're on a plan with like a limited number of CI minutes or something like that. So if we have, so to take a few months back in time, I had put some thought into this and just come up with some shots in the dark. And I don't know if this is the right answer, but something we could test is the static site editor initializes. And at that point, your changes are only saved locally to the browser storage, the browser local storage. If you explicitly save your draft, that's when we create a branch and commit to that branch. But no merge request has been created. So the commits are saved the commits are created when you click the save button. So maybe there's a message, maybe there's not. We can figure out what, best practices we should reinforce there. But the draft workflow is just commits on a branch that is not yet ready to merge. Publish would create the merge request. And then the workflow that we would explore down the road is like, how do you pick up that merge request again to publish changes if you got feedback on it or forgot a bit and you wanted to go back to it or something, because you can still commit to a merge request obviously after it's been created. So the assumptions I had there were all part of this like MVC that I had outlined, and obviously we chopped it up to be more minimal and more valuable sooner, which is great. But I think this would be a chance for us to explore that, and whether that's even what users want, if that's abstracting away the commit and merge request workflow enough, or if what they're looking for with drafts might exceed the capabilities of just a simple commit onto a branch or something like that. I think I would be careful about using the word draft in the UI because it implies a draft like editorial flow for blogs that we're not ready to support. Because originally I had thought save as a draft, because in my head that's what it is, but we want to try and make sure we don't like indicate that we can do more than we can.
Cool. All right. So with respect to save, when you click on save for the first time, the branch that's created is just any old branch, right? Like we're not going to ask people to like name it or stuff like that. It just gets created like a auto-generated name.
It could be, yeah. I mean, that's probably not how our engineering flow would,
Sound like best practices.
What it would consider best practice to not name your branch. I know the Web IDE has done a lot of research in this area. We might want to borrow from that. See if we can, maybe you click save and you get prompted with a default name, but you can override it. It's a lot of steps, so I think that's a perfect thing to explore in this.
Okay, cool. What I'm thinking right now is that save just creates auto name, and then you could change it later when you're ready to like create the MR and stuff. You can rename a branch if necessary in Git. So I think that might be useful, because for save just save stuff somewhere. And then, there probably needs to be some feedback on the screen to say that, your changes are being saved to this magical branch somewhere. When you hit publish, that's when I think you can like edit and change the branch name if necessary. And what I did here is that in the new merge requests, I kind of took the template and kind of broke it down into the fields themselves. So you have the title, what is being changed, why is this change being made, and this like who should be assigned for merging is kind of, I'm trying to synthesize, like create like change the word assignee into like a sentence. If there's a better kind of term for this.
Maybe review, who should review this change before merging or something like that. I mean, review is also a loaded word in our product, so maybe that's not it.
Yeah, it's a tough one because like reviewing is one thing. Like, do we show like who should review this, and then there's the person who's like actually responsible for merging. It could be you.
Right.
It could be yourself if you have permission to merge to master yourself. But you may not. Yeah. Or do we just call it assignee?
let's leave it like this and get feedback on it. If they're confused by it, then that's an indication that that we haven't abstracted it enough.
Okay, cool. For this solution validation round, I'm thinking that we take this out. This like kind of like if you want to use an existing merge request or like create a new one, I think we can like descope the session by removing this. And this is what I'm talking about. Like we could go really big on some of this stuff by having this stuff here, or we can just have it here as for conversation. But I think that just increases how long the session might go.
Yeah, I'm fine with leaving it. I do think that it's going to be an important workflow, but I think we can get information. I think there's going to be enough to talk about, like you said.
Okay. We're at like the scheduled time, but are you okay to go longer, or do you need to?
I have a few more minutes, but I do have to stop soon.
Okay, cool. People fill in, and then once you fill it in, then the area for feedback of the branch and all that stuff, it goes up in here. This is the title that you give it. This is the like GitLab kind of like address for it and the issue ID. Clicking on this button will reopen this modal so that you can like make changes or things like that. And then this thing, it was something that I was exploring the other day, where if you click on this button, it like opens up to like your merge requests related to the static site editor, so that we potentially add like a label in the background here where it's the static site editor changes or handbook changes, or maybe it's just changes related to the handbook, and it automatically has the label. And this is simulating that like one spot to see all your handbook related changes or things like that. And that's more like to test to see if that's sufficient to have one place to see all your changes in one go. Yeah, and then yeah, so this clicking on the link itself takes you to the actual merge request. So this is like tying it back to GitLab and the GitLab UI. Then I guess the other thing that we want to talk about really quickly before we jump off is like multiple edits to one MR, multiple edits on one MR. This was a concept I was exploring, where like there's this persistent sticky header that once you're in like edit mode, when you're visiting handbook pages, it's always there. But I can see how this can be confusing, because you also have this down here, this like contribute to page. So, you know, potentially we can just get rid of this. But like once you get into edit mode, maybe this is kind of the dialogue that you see. Do you want to add this to an existing page, existing MR, continue, or yeah.
Yeah, I can see this being tricky. I mean, right now the concept is you open it up, one page, one branch, one change, and then you create an MR. If you are working on a change and then you save a draft, or even create, let's say you publish and you come back to the production page and you're looking, you see another typo. You're like, oh, I'm just going to add that to the same MR, and you click edit the page. It feels like maybe that either this modal, but I don't know if like, I guess this modal is in the static site editor, but yeah, it almost seems like you need to hit a landing page. It's like, you've got this outstanding MR. Do you want to pick up work on this? And maybe we just need to be smart about it. Like if you're working on a page that's already included in this MR, do you want to start a new one, or do you want to like which one do you want to base it off of? I guess
Yeah,
are
exactly.
you basing off the origin, off master, or off a branch that you had already created? But I think it could get really sticky, honestly, because are you looking across all branches? Like, what if I wanted to pick up off of your work? So now do I show all open branches, and then you, like, that's just a mess. Like we're just recreating the whole GitLab product. So we don't want to do that. So yeah, I think I like this approach, and I think we'll need to keep iterating on it. But that decision point where it's like, I want to edit this again from the production site.
Yeah.
How do we know that you already have pending open merge requests related to that page and present the decision? Do you want to like pick up where you left off and work on that branch, or do you want to start a new branch?
Okay.
That's really the decision point, I think.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. So I think that's it for solution validation. It's like the scenario is you already have some MRs on the go, and you're going to another page to edit. Now you need to like associate your upcoming change with this MR. How do you do that?
Yeah.
Cool.
But I think testing that workflow makes a lot of sense for the scope of this, and I don't think that's too much. And yeah, I like it. I think we'll get a lot of good input from it.
Okay, cool. All right, that's good for me. Let me refine the discussion guide and the goals of the research today. And then I'm gonna get going on like the recruitment side. I think for now we still recruit internally because it's still very handbook focused. And I think we need to solve that problem first before we expand out. And we have other research issues to expand out. So I think this is a good step. And yeah, now I know the struggle that you had at the beginning of my time here at GitLab doing these solution validations. You get caught up and hung up, and and having someone to talk to helps.
It does. I spun my wheels for a couple months trying to figure out how to tackle this. So this is, I think, a great first one to do, and sounds good.
All right,
thanks for putting it together. Yeah.
Yep. Awesome. Cool.
All right.
Bye.
Take care.